Aaron Tuttle here. It's storm season in Oklahoma, and with that comes torrential rain, high winds, and hail. To protect your home and your family from these threats, the one roofing company you should trust is Ferguson Roof Systems. They've been providing the best in roofing services for nearly half a century. Ferguson is Oklahoma's full-service roofing company, certified with an A+ Better Business Bureau rating and a 5-star rating on Google. And with Ferguson now offering Class 4 impact-resistant shingles, now is the time to trust them with your home's roof. Get started today at FergusonRoofSystems.com.
Hey everybody, Meteorologist Aaron Tuttle back with you again. It is just about 5 minutes till noon here on your Mondays. We're going to start off the work week, unfortunately, with some severe weather. So we're going to detail that outlook for you here quickly as you get out the door to grab your lunch. So thanks for stopping by. We'll try to make this relatively short. Got, of course, a lot to talk about. It is a pretty potent day. We have not had a day set up like this all spring season. Typically, we do peak out of our severe weather season in May. So this is not unheard of. This is actually normal for you newcomers around the state. And it does kind of peak into the middle part of the month, and then it rapidly drops off into about the first and second week of June. So we've got about 4 to 6 weeks left of our severe weather season. For the most part, we do have to talk about sometimes the potential for tornadic conditions. So that is on the table for today. All right, so out there currently, unfortunately, we've got some clouds that are beginning to clear a little bit. We'll show you a satellite picture in a minute. And temperatures are rebounding. I've got 68 degrees so far, with a wind that's kind of variable right now, kind of currently out of the northwest just for a brief second, but it's been kind of all over the place as we had quite a bit of rainfall out there this morning. Now, we talked about the cloud cover is starting to kind of erode here in the western parts of the state. So with that happening, we're going to start to see more and more sun and more instability come in and break through and warm things up. And actually out there across western Oklahoma is where you do find the best convergence, where these lines, these arrow barbs come together, where temperatures are already climbing into the low 70s, mid 70s, and low 80s as you go from north to south, and a nice southeast wind elsewhere here over the body of Oklahoma. We look at temperatures, we're starting to rebound a little bit. So we've got the 60s and 70s now here in central Oklahoma, of course the 80s south and west. Still obviously much cooler in northeast Oklahoma. And the winds are primarily out of the southeast here, but they're starting to pick up now in speed, and they're going to be a little gusty probably for today, especially out across western Oklahoma with wind gusts up in excess of 30 miles per hour. We've already seen some gusts higher than that with those storms that rolled through last night. There's a 62 up there in northern Oklahoma and a 65 in southeastern Oklahoma, so we kind of split the state there. All right, so here is a look at the severe weather outlook from the Storm Prediction Center. As you can see, it's bullseyed right here over the northern half of Oklahoma. It does extend into Kansas, Arkansas, Missouri, and pretty much all of Oklahoma, with the exception of far western Oklahoma, those counties there. The tornado risk is highest in the north central area of the state, so from Oklahoma City to the north, and then also to the north and east toward Tulsa. You get a wind damage threat with that, and there's a hail damage threat with that. If you zoom into that region, it kind of looks like this on the breakdown. Enhanced to moderate across central to northern Oklahoma with the medium potential for tornado, baseball-sized hail. Winds up around 80 miles per hour. And in northeast Oklahoma, same idea. Medium tornado potential. It does include Tulsa. Highest tornado potential will exist mid to late afternoon through the early evening hours, watching those supercell storms develop and move into that area. So here's a look at we'll call it a medium threat, but it's caution you on using this graphic as verbatim. If you're going low, medium, and high, well, what does that really mean to me? The bottom line is, if you're going to be in the path of a supercell storm today, once they mature, and once they kind of run in a north to south line from really Enid due south through Canadian County all the way down to Anadarko and Chickasha, once you get along that north-south boundary and then points east, any supercell at all is going to be producing a tornado. Unfortunately, it's just the atmosphere that we're in. I'd be surprised if they didn't. Now, early on, they'll have some hail with them, but as they mature, that's the timing. So it may say medium. Just know if you're in the immediate path, you're going to have to deal with that. Here's a look at the timing on this. From 4 o'clock onward is when the storms will begin to develop. And they will kind of develop into two areas, kind of a broken area around the Clinton region, and then a line area from around Ponca City to Enid. But they'll all move into central Oklahoma during the evening hours and moving out of the state overnight. Here's the severe weather potential for Wednesday. So yeah, we still have potential for tornadoes, large hail, damaging winds. The details are still pretty murky. It's still early in the forecast period for this, but just know the back of your mind that we are expecting some severe weather across the state on Wednesday. Details on that later. Meanwhile, temperatures this afternoon warming up to around 90 degrees out in western Oklahoma, only into the mid 70s in eastern Oklahoma, and we'll split the difference in the low 80s here in central Oklahoma. The dry line will be setting up here out across west central Oklahoma, so this will be the focus for those storms. This is west of Oklahoma City metro area. So like I said, if you're probably west of the, I'll tell you what, let's do this right here. I'll pop up a line here for you. So if you live around Fairview, Enid, Helena, Medford, Hennessy, Kingfisher, Geary, Binger, Carnegie, Lawton. If you live in all these little towns, you're on the dividing line of the dry line for today. So those storms will initiate near you and then get mature. And once they get along Highway 81 here, which runs south out of Enid through El Reno, once they get along that boundary and points eastward, that's when they really have the better opportunities of being tornadic. Speaking of which, we still have some storms out there across the state, but they're in far eastern Oklahoma, continue to press farther to the east. Right now, no current severe thunderstorm warnings, it looks like, with them, but some pretty stout thunderstorms. We're probably going to get pockets of wind with this, maybe some small hail as that activity moves off to the east. So it's clearing out the state to allow some destabilization to return this afternoon. All right, so the dry line is the focus for some of those thunderstorms that should develop out here. So this is how the instability looks like, by the way. If we were just to kind of plot a forecast sounding, we'll do a couple here. So we'll just kind of pick Oklahoma County as just one spot. Just kind of show you what's on the table here. We have low lifting condensation levels, no cap at all, which is why that's a concern for today, so that's not going to be an issue. Plenty of shear in the atmosphere, good directional shear. The possible hazard type is what they call a PDS tornado. That means a significant tornado threat. In other words, the speeds or the intensities could be in the EF2 to EF3 category. Now, if you can get some boundary interaction, which is more likely across, say, northern Oklahoma, roughly from a line from maybe Enid, Medford to just north of Stillwater, maybe to Tulsa, somewhere in that vicinity, you might get like a violent tornado in that. We don't want that, of course, but that's some of the data that's showing that possibility across northern Oklahoma near the Kansas state border. Of course, Kansas will be getting some storms too, but needless to say, some big hail with any of these storms that come out, so the sounding forecast for this afternoon doesn't look all that promising if you're wanting it to be nice and calm. All right, so if you look at the cap strength, in other words, if we look at this map, we'll show you different models. Each one will show you the cap has eroded by the lack of any significant colors on the screen. The darker the colors, the stronger the cap. And this is just by 4 o'clock here, this at 5 o'clock this afternoon. So there's one model, there's a second model, a third model, fourth model, fifth model, sixth model. So the idea here is very little cap at all across the areas where the storm should be initiating. So this is how things will look. We'll look at a couple of the models, kind of give you an idea. So that morning stuff moves on off, and then we have that new activity developing. Here's 3 and 4 o'clock here across northwest Oklahoma. So that's probably the first spot that they'll develop. And you can see how they kind of erupt all across the Enid area, back south and west from there, east of Elk City, probably toward the Clinton area. And then they'll get more mature, like I said, as they get closer to that Highway 81 corridor, some hail for sure, all the way up to Ponca City. And some of these will be rotating, so the potential for tornadoes starts to go up here as we head from the late afternoon into the evening. And this line of storms will continue to march southeastward, probably with some QLCS type tornadoes later on in the event. Now that is one potential outcome. If you look at the various other models, kind of show you how they look. The HERB model, by the way, Kansas, again, you guys are getting some storms up here, and some of these will be tornadic in central Kansas. So there's one model there. Notice how the clustering is up across the north. There's another model clustering across the north. There's another model clustering mostly across the north. And then here's one that brings it more into central Oklahoma. Here's one again, central Oklahoma. And then here's one that kind of splits the difference, north and central Oklahoma. So there's plenty of model consensus that we're going to have to deal with some supercell storms. So here's another one, high resolution, that also breaks out those nasty storms in northern Oklahoma around Enid eastward, which probably have the best chance for a violent tornado. Down here in the Oklahoma City metro area, they do indicate pretty close call here for this particular model for tornadic supercell. Now, remember, they won't be exact on the placement. They kind of give you the general idea. Could be a little north, could be a little south, but the take home is what you want to pay attention to. Meanwhile, the line of storms will continue to kind of evolve. We look at the tech model, same idea. It really hasn't changed. It keeps those cluster of storms right along the Kansas border, back builds them into central Oklahoma as we head into our evening hour. So around the Oklahoma City metro, any time after 6 o'clock is fair game for these storms to move on through, and they'll take a couple hours for them to do so. And then they'll continue to move across the southeastern body of the state during the evening. The significant tornado parameter, in other words, the brighter the colors, the stronger the parameters, are located along that I-35 corridor, north to south here, across central to northern Oklahoma. So nothing really has changed in the data or in the forecast from the last couple of days. Models are pretty stout with it. And again, a weak cap and everything else is in place for the ingredients for tornadic supercells. All right, so temperatures out there for today. We're going to be into the, we can top out probably around 82 maybe here in the metro, which again is breaking the cap temperature. Otherwise, we're looking at 60s for tomorrow, so quite a bit cooler. So decent day. Wednesday, it's going to be cloudy, scattered showers off and on, increase of moisture, some thunderstorms. Again, question on the severity side. We'll get to that later. Meanwhile, Thursday looks good. We did warm up over the weekend, though. Sunday, good grief, man. We're already talking about 90. Ugh, nobody wants that nonsense, but that is what is on the table. Okay, so that's pretty much everything in a nutshell in a very quick 7-minute update. So that was good for you. So here's the deal. Use my weather app, AT's Weather to Go. It's free, Apple, Google Play. It will predict tornadoes before they happen. How do they do that? Well, it uses a lot of secret ingredients and a proprietary formula, and it predicts whether or not a storm will produce a tornado. And then it gives you a rating on that, and it lets you know way ahead of time. So you'll get a twisting storm alert or a dangerous storm alert. You'll get a BTI number anywhere from 0 to 10. If it's in the low category, 0, 1, 2, 3, just means pay attention, heads up. If it's in a 4, 5, or 6, you better think about heading to the shelter and definitely pay attention. If it's a 7, 8, 9, and 10, hit the deck, don't even question it. You can watch the broadcast after you're in sheltering in place. So I will be live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter as usual. So make sure you tell your friends and family about me. They can watch the severe weather coverage without getting all worked up and all anxious, and we'll just cover it, and I'll tell you the science behind it, why the storms are doing what they're doing, if a storm will produce a tornado, if it won't, what's going to prevent it, what helps it, enables it, that kind of deal. And we also look at the terrain underneath. There's a lot of open land in Oklahoma. If you've ever driven outside of Oklahoma City or any other big city, and you just travel from one town to the next, a lot of farmland, a lot of grassland. So a lot of these tornadoes happen in those areas, thank goodness. We obviously never want one in a populated area. At some point it does happen. Obviously when that does, you want to make sure that you're well protected. So it's always the lowest level of any building that you're in, away from all outside walls and windows. Just to let you know, there are times where if you have a significant, strong to violent tornado, depending on the structure of the home, the integrity, it can remove a lot of that material from the slab of the home. And you're in the middle of all that mess, right? But you can, believe it or not, still survive. Now, it happens a lot. Now, I've never went through that, so I definitely don't want to. That's definitely a situation you can suffer from PTSD afterwards, but I totally understand. I wouldn't want to ride out of a tornado ever, much less, in the comfort of my home thinking that I'm safe, right? But on those violent tornadoes, that can happen. In Andover, by the way, just a couple days ago, they had an EF3 tornado, but it had a very small damage path. And in that damage path, it actually ripped off some of the housing structures off the slab foundation. Now, there were anchor bolts on there, but I don't know how well their building codes are and how the structure of the materials, right? Because every builder's going to be different. If they cut corners, you don't know, all that kind of stuff. But let's just assume it was a normal, standard structured house. They followed coding, etc. Well, a lot of those areas, there wasn't much left of the homes, but there were no deaths. And that is there's a great thing just to let you know that even if you are in the worst of the worst, it's still not a guarantee that your life is coming to an end. But what you want to do is protect yourself from injuries, right? That's the one thing, you do what you can do. You do what you can control. And what's outside of your control, you just have to release it. So what you can do, kids, yourself, get the center part of your home, grab a blanket, pillows, mattresses. We tell put sporting gear on the kids, the helmets and pads, anything to prevent flying debris. Remember, you got glass and rocks and everything else flying around at speeds of 100 or 200 miles per hour. You definitely don't want any of that across your skin. So that kind of helps protect you from that, and obviously get very, very low. You'll even see like some crazy things in video and pictures and stuff when you do have a tornado that moves through and it kind of does a lot of damage. The lowest lying areas of little things will never be touched, like a plastic water spout, for example, which weighs nothing, right? But it's the right down the ground level. There's a lot of physics involved when you're talking about aerodynamic flow. So that's the whole principle, which is probably why there's still that old saying, if you're stuck in a storm with a tornado barreling down you, don't want to be in your car, you want to be in a ditch. Same kind of idea. Obviously you never want to put yourself in that situation, so don't do it. And if you do find yourself, make sure, like you have my app, so you can get away from that situation. A lot of times storms will move in kind of an easterly direction. They may move in a northeast or southeast, but it's typically an easterly direction. Very rare does a tornadic storm either move due north or due south. It does happen, but it's on the 1% of all movement of tornadoes. So typically, whenever you're in that situation, you do want to move in a southward direction just to get away from the storm itself. Now, we're assuming that you have plenty of time, right? Assuming that it's not 100 yards to your west or whatever, because by then you're too late. And besides with traffic and whoever knows around you. So you're just got to be very weather aware on these type of days for these type of events. Now, I can tell you that we're not looking for widespread supercells. In other words, we're not looking for a dozen or 2 dozen or anything like that. But we are looking for a handful. So we are talking about at least tracking a few tornadoes later this afternoon and evening. These tornadoes have a tendency to live a little longer than what they normally do. Usually they're very short-lived. They last on the order of seconds mostly, and then some of them on the order of minutes. And minutes being, 3, 5, something like that. So it's what you have to understand is once you get that tornado, the storm itself is always in an unstable state. So to get things to be stable enough from the tornado aspect of wanting it to maintain its current environment and what it's doing is very difficult. There's always some monkey wrench that gets thrown in from all kinds of different environmental factors. So as that happens, it destabilizes the whole point of the mesocyclone and the tornadogenesis. So that's good news, which means they're very hard to last a long time. So when they do last a long time, of course you hear about it because it's all over the media, it's all over social media. And those are few and far between. What you don't hear about is the ones that are here, gone 1 minute, gone the next, 10 seconds, 30 seconds. And those are by far and large the majority of how they usually operate. So all that said and done, that's all the information that I have for you here for today. Make sure you stay weather aware, know weather radio, weather app, friends and family, all that kind of stuff. And join me later on. I'll be live probably starting around 5 o'clock is probably when I figure we'll probably have some storms out there, at least producing some hail by that point. So we'll kind of see how that goes. But join me then and we'll cover the storms. All right, guys, I'm out of time here for lunch, but appreciate you watching, sharing, liking this video, and we'll talk with you soon. Oh, real quick, to make sure you don't miss a broadcast, before I go, I'm going to post the link again. So you will get a direct notification from me through your Facebook Messenger that I am going live if you hit the opt-in for weather updates. Several hundred of you have done that just in the last couple of weeks. You keep adding to it. So therefore, you won't miss anything because I can't guarantee you Facebook's going to notify you when I go live. I'll do my best, but that's the way that is. As far as, Sherry's wants to know, when do you think the first tornado is going to be? It'll be in northern northwestern Oklahoma, probably somewhere around the Enid area, maybe just a little east, somewhere in that vicinity up toward the Kansas border. It's just a best guess on my part, and that'll be probably by 4:30 or 5 o'clock. So somewhere in there, it's just an early best guess. But from that point forward, again, it'll be a busy next few hours across the state. All right, well, that is it for me. I'm going to get out of here, but appreciate you guys stopping by, and we'll talk again soon. Be safe. Take care.